I've been sworn to clean up my lab today, but I got distracted in thinking about yesterday's test with Jim's field set at 2.5 volts. So I put my best plastic 3D printed fields on I think it's a non-Polmar. I'll check. It might be a Polmar. I can't tell. But anyway, I'll check. But my best arc magnets with the big fat boosters to see what could I do. And of course it's an Atlantic, but it does have smoke on it. You know, there's a little more resistance there. But as you can see, I'm at 2 volts at 1/2 amp. So this is a little better than Jim's. And I thought it might be interesting to point out I made a modification to the lid for the Fkyer, vintage Fkyer smoke. I had realized I was blocking off the outlet for the Chuff sound, but I thought I had air underneath that wasn't blocked off. But as an experiment, I drilled a couple of holes to see how much noise I was losing from the Chuff sound, and it was quite considerable, I find out. And so now that I've opened that hole up, you hear that? Home sweet home, you know. $10 volts. So now I don't have the smoke hooked up. This is just doing the engine. I'm just testing the mechanical Chuff sound. And I was cheating everybody on this. So now I'm going to have to go through all my lids and machine that hole so the smoke sound can better escape the mechanical system. Oh, that was pretty neat. So I'm going to build this engine up as a level 1 using the vintage smoke and the power distribution and the motor controller and the volt regulator for the smoke, and no sounds at this time. Okay, maybe we'll come up with something later. But I'm building basic engines that I can show at a reasonable investment what you can get. Okay, that's the objective. And as I go along, I'll build other engines with more advanced features, like Leon's, which will have about everything I can do. But I'm starting back at the baseline now, so I'm going to have a no smoke unit. I'm going to have a vintage smoke unit, and then I'll have the bare bones 3D smoke unit. That way everyone can see what they might be interested in or not, and how they could go about getting started. I also did an exam on this particular chassis. I'll shut this off for a second. All right, so we're going to have Chuff noises with that board in it. I did a little look-see for curiosity's sake. As you can see, there's an opening in here, and then it's solid back here because you have to have something to hold this bushing and bearing. But what I did was I just sort of eyeballed this line here to say, well, if I cut it from here to about where that screw is and just take out a slice like that, I could hang a gear over here. And I do have the gear hanger device here. Now, this gear hanger is engaging with a worm gear that I've added by pulling the motor back by adding this spacer. I pull the motor back, it gives me a tiny worm gear. This guy can engage in that worm gear. However, yeah, and notice these holes here, unused. These have the inserts, but I didn't use them. But if I take out the spacer, use these gears, adapt this holder onto a plate that bolts here, this gets milled out, and I push the gear out and down and mimic the exact location of this gear and reach back to here for the holder for it. So it bolts here, holds the gear here, engages with the worm. I can get a driven gear trigger for pulsing, so that the non-smoke engines, even if they don't have the holder for the gear, I can make one, but I would not put a smoke system on because it's not designed or engineered for it. But I could put my smoke system on it and use that gear like I am in Leon's to trigger the artificial smoke sound and the pulsing for the fan. So there's all depends, a couple of ways to skin the cat. I'm going to do one myself probably on my stupid Dremel. Then I'm going to document everything and send it to Jim and see what he would charge us to create that groove in these chassis. And I have lots of these chassis. I bought them because they're inexpensive, and I knew I could make them smoke one way or another. But it would be so much easier if we'd use the same thickness here and all that, and be able to sit those in. Another thing, I had a revelation the other day working on another problem. Those who might have the large motor, which is instead of a 1/2 inch, it's 3/4 of an inch. My arc magnets are 3/8 of an inch. They're a little short, but if you put two of them together, they're 3/4. So if you had the large armature, or if we can find a way to make large armatures, I could make a double wide field housing and put in double magnets, and we would have the strongest engine ever, I think. We'd be pulling houses down. The challenge is, can I take an old armature and add plates and make it, right, a 1/2 inch? Excuse me, make it, yes, 1/2 inch. I think that's what I meant. Or did I mean 3/4? Yeah, I think it's 1/2 inch to 3/4. 3/4. Make it 3/4. If I can make it 3/4, I can widen the field. There should be plenty of gear. When I look down in there, that gear is sticking out quite a bit, so there should be plenty of gear. And then we could have a big motor with DC magnets. So anyway, I don't know. Comment below or let me know what you think about machining this out so we have that clearance just for that gear. You see the difference there and there. So, and you can tell that these are the little tabbies to hold the body in, and they're the same, and they're machined out. So if you just machine them the same, they'll be the exact same strength, the exact same location. The only thing I'm not going to do is try to put this guy in there. Rather, I'll just hang it off of the motor with a plastic adapter that screws in. And I've done that, so like here, I've done it, okay? I just need to extend it out, lower it down, and we already have, there it is right there. No, that's not it. There's another gear somewhere else. Oh, it's on Leon's engine. We have this gear in plastic, so I can make that gear, and it engages the worm perfectly. And boom, we now have a smoke gear. Depends on what that machining costs. This part, the spacing of this back and doing all that is not a big deal. It's just messy. It just a little clunky for me. And I thought if we machine this out, this would be less clunky and you would have the exact same dimensions. Anyway, that's a thought. Tell me what you think. Would you pay for that, and how much would you pay, and is it worth it, or do you really understand what I'm trying to do? Okay, well, anyway, we've got our Chuff back with my lid, which I think is pretty exciting. This lid is working out real well. I'm getting it tuned quite consistently across the board, so I'm feeling confident that's a good lid. And you don't lose your puff or your chuff on the vintage. I think that's neat. All right, more later. Printing parts and cleaning up. Oh God, I hate cleanup. All right, gang, later.